Good morning, my favorite people. Welcome to Tuesday. Happy Tuesday. This morning, I think we're pushing on about maybe 80 something now. It's it's already hot and sticky outside already, but I think the heat wave is over with. So this morning, we are going to be doing some of the postmodern theories, narrative therapy, solution focused brief therapy, as well as collaborative therapy. So I'm going to be touching a little bit on all three of them as I am working through these videos, and then I'll make like some comparisons, and then we'll talk about some of the things that they are similar in and some of the things they are not similar in. So let's get started with narrative therapy. This is Michael White and David Epstein. They believed in a more collaborative approach, right? The clients are the experts. So when it comes to narrative therapy, solution focused, and collaborative, we don't tell our clients what to do. We don't prescribe the symptom. We're not directing them. We're not assigning any of these tasks and stuff for them to do and telling them, hey, this is what you have to do, right? The author is the client. The client is the one that is reauthoring their lives. We are just simply there, just being a part of it, right? The client are the experts. Keep that in mind when it comes to postmodern approaches. Now, like I always say, don't look at the screen. That's just there for a reminder for me so that I can make sure that I am touching on everything that you need to know. So when it came to narrative therapy, there is no structured phases of therapy. It's not even any structured phases of therapy for collaborative therapy as well. But for the assessment part of it, in the beginning, the narrative therapist does want to know the person apart from the problem. And that means getting to know the client that doesn't have anything to do with the reason as to why they're in therapy in the first place, right? Because then that's going to help them identify some of those unique outcomes, which is drawing attention to the times when that problem is not the problem, right? The problem is the problem. The person isn't the problem. The problem isn't the problem, right? So then you also look at some of those mapping effects. So there's two different ones, right? How the problem has affected the client as well as how the client has affected the life of the problem, right? How that problem has affected the client, and then how the client is viewing this problem as a part of his life. Is it taking over my life? Does it have control over my life? That is a narrative therapist job, is to get the client to recognize that, but at the same time not telling them what to do in order to get there, right? Because the client is the expert. The client is the expert of their own lives. They know what it is that they need to do. Even like in solution focused therapy, the therapist believes that the client already has the solutions. You just got to use more of it, but we'll get to that, right? So who's involved with therapy? Whoever is present, the narrative therapist will work with. It didn't require the system as a whole, but therapy, if the person is maybe related to reaching that goal, then the therapist will be like, hey, why don't you come in, to help them make their desirable narrative or get to that desirable solution that they will like as in solution-focused therapy, right? But then again, the goal of narrative therapy is to simply alter the problem-saturated story. That story that is filled with all of the issues, all of the problems. We got to alter it, right? We need to alter that story so that you can get to that preferred narrative, so that you can get to enjoying life and also feeling better. Ultimately, that is what the goal of narrative therapy is. There's not multiple goals. It doesn't go any deeper than simply altering the problem-saturated story to get that client to the preferred narrative that is going to help them, live a more life that is less problem-filled. That's it. It's as simple as that. But there are a lot of key terms for narrative therapy. So again, don't read the screen. Just listen to me. I'm going to try to explain these as best as I can. So the narrative is just the stories that we tell ourselves. If you think about it, it's like the belief system that we have. They shape us. They shape who we are, as well as how we think and how we behave. That's what a narrative is, right? The dominant story. This is the main story of a person's life. And if you think about it, sometimes it's those societal norms that continues to keep that problem so saturated within our lives. Because some of the times we are focused on This is how society views it. This is how I need to be. This is what society is saying to do. This is what I have to do. So then it becomes like a part of you, right? And again, it's that narrative. It's what we tell ourselves. It's how we shape our identity. It's how we shape the behaviors that we have. But then the alternate story, or it's that preferred narrative that you heard me talking about, that is a story that is more empowering. It's the more hopeful way to help you get to where you want to get to, which in turn, you're going to start feeling better because now it becomes personal. You can now personalize it. These are your own values that you believe, your own beliefs that you believe about yourself, and hopes that you have for yourself. And you're not like too focused on what society or what other people think, because now you've gotten to that alternate story that you want to get to, and it's a place where you feel comfortable. Right? So then we move on to externalization. This is separating the person from that problem. The person is not the problem. The problem is the problem. And there are so many different ways that you can do this. Like a person, like, oh, I'm so anxious, or I'm so depressed, and I'm so angry all the time. You would just put it in a way of like, anger is trying to take over. Depression has a hold on me, or anxiety is trying to take over my life. So then now you're going to separate it. So now you don't get to be a part of that problem. You get to face that problem, head on once you separate it from yourself. And then there's the destruction. This is simply ripping that dominant story apart. We are going to take that dominant story that you have. We're going to look at the origins of it. We're going to look at how it influences you, how it influences somebody else, how it may impact your life, how it may have an effect on your life, as well as how the problem has an effect on your life as well. And we're just going to like strip it apart. We're just going to examine it. We're just going to look at it. We're just going to find a way to like break it down as much as we possibly can, to see like how can we alter it? How can we get you to your preferred narrative that you need, right? But then this is one of my favorite things, and I do this with my clients all the time. It's those sparkling moments, the unique outcome, right? It's the part where it contradicts, and that's the word that they use. It contradicts. I'm trying to find another word to use, but it's that part where you're able to identify and see that, hey, the dominant problem, I had power over it. I had strength when it came to me tackling it during that moment. And you want to really let your client know, like, hey, I recognize that this happened or whatever, and letting them know, like, hey, this is just one step moving towards you reaching that preferred narrative that you want. It's those sparkling moments. It's those beautiful moments. Let your, bring that up in there. Like, if you do use a narrative therapy approach, I think the sparkling moments is a part where it's very powerful, because that client gets to also realize that what they are experiencing, or even an event that they've gone through, at some point it is going to contradict that problem saturated story that they have, and they need to be able to identify, how did you do that? Talk about some of those strengths, and talk about some of those resources you use in order to get to that sparkling moment. And again, I believe these are the last few key terms, other than the mapping terms that I have. Reauthoring, right? This is just you building up, working on strengthening that story. Unique outcomes, sparkling moments. This is all coming into you reauthoring that story that you have, that dominant story that we want to make less problem saturated, right? And then that preferred narrative, the preferred story, just like I keep talking about, it's that values, it's that hopes, it's the commitments, it's the intentions that we have. It's a story that we want to live by, rather than what society wants us, rather than those labels, rather than what somebody else wants us to be. This is the story that is going to help us feel more comfortable. It's going to make us feel so much better, because now we don't feel pressured to be somebody who we don't want to be, or feel a way that we don't want to feel, right? And then therapeutic letters. I love this. I do this with my clients. I do this with my students. I write letters at the end of treatment with my clients. But then sometimes a narrative therapist, they will also in session, like if it's a family, they will have each other write letters to each other. It's a very beautiful way to talk about the gains that you have made, being able to view that problem-saturated story that you started out with and to see how it's become to that preferred narrative that that person have wanted to get to. So again, narrative therapy is just simply we are reauthoring our stories. We are getting to that story, that we want to live by doing what? Working on some of those sparkling moments, externalizing, deconstructing the problem story to get us to that preferred narrative that we would like to see. And then this is the mapping component of it, right? How does the problem affect the person's life, right? So then during these moments, we are going to look at the impact of the problem that it has on how a person feels, relationships, the hopes that they may even have for themselves. What is that problem doing with that, right? And then some of the examples like I use is typically like anxiety, depression, anger. What does anxiety get you to do or stop doing? This is how the problem affects that person's life. What does anxiety do? What is it doing to get you to, to not go out and enjoy yourself? What is anxiety doing? How does anxiety get you to stop, taking that exam or get you to stop doing what you want to do that's going to make you feel good about yourself, right? And then how the person affects the problem. This is personalized. Like I said, this is something that's personal, right? And then this is how you're going to explore the ways that you need to pay attention to how you are resisting, right? Pay attention to how you are just giving the problem the control, right? We need to pay attention to that. Pay attention to the times when you didn't listen to your depressive thoughts. Pay attention to the times when you didn't allow anxiety to stop you from going out when you wanted to go out, right? Have there been times when you didn't listen to it? Has there been times when you didn't, succumb to depression? Has there been times when this problem didn't have control over you, right? This is personal. It's personalized, even in like the smallest ways. The narrative therapist wants to pave way to that, because then when you really look at it, if you're telling me that this is the time when, anxiety didn't have control, well, then we need to be doing more of that, right? We need to be doing more of that, identifying again those sparkling moments, right? It's like it's all in one, right? It's all in one. So again, narrative therapy, we are reauthoring. We are getting to that narrative that we want to live by versus how society wants us to live by it. And I always do this. How to recognize this theory on the exam. Narrative therapy has its own significant terms. I don't think there is another model that uses the terms story, dominant discourse, problem affects your life, problem-saturated story, reauthoring. Those are the terms you need to look out for. And take a look at what I have. Look for descriptions. The therapist explores a client's response to the issue. Definitely narrative therapist. Definitely. The client is asked how, anxiety influences relationships or behaviors. That's mapping the influence. Definitely narrative therapist. I don't think there is another model that uses these types of terms. So these terms should just stick out like a sore thumb to you. Stay away from when you see in that vignette that it's talking about the miracle question. That's not narrative therapy. That's solution-focused brief therapy. So stay away. So be mindful and pay attention to that. And then I'll also talk about in solution-focused therapy video as well. Some of these terms kind of run into each other sometimes because the postmodern theories are kind of one and the same. So pay attention to it. All three of them are the experts, but each of these models have terms and descriptions that you will be able to tell them apart. And then I'll teach you how to do that. But okay, this is narrative therapy. This is you're reauthoring your story, and I think daily we each do that anyways. At least we strive to do that each and every day. All right. I hope this video makes sense. Leave a comment, ask questions. If there's anything that you are confused by, anything you do not understand, as always, leave a comment, send me a message, and I will try my best to support you. Thank you.